I don't see it, but I don't see it. Okay. Hey, we're alive. Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming on the show. Today we have author Gloria Gavris, who wrote a book about elections. And when she first wrote it, it was in 2016. And now we can't believe it. Here it is 4 years later. So we'll talk to her in a few minutes. And then I got E.B. Lewis, famous award-winning illustrator, to come on the show. So, but we're really here today to help teachers who are out there. They're not in school. We feel for you teachers. We thought we'd try to do some shows with all my author buddies and illustrator buddies. And all you kids out there that aren't in school, we feel bad for you. So I thought, hey, I'll introduce you to some really talented people. So today, first off, is going to be E.B. Lewis. E.B. Lewis, I don't know how many books he has, 100, 80, 75, something like that.
I think the last count was
one of my
70.
favorite. I got to tell you how I met E.B. I probably met him 20 years ago visiting schools. People say to me after seeing these shows, they say to me, do you really know these people? And I thought about when I first met E.B. And I fell in love with him right away. You know why? Because the guy works hard. This guy works hard. When I saw him, he was selling books, he was selling prints, he was talking to teachers, he was excited about literature, he was excited about all the work that he does, and he does beautiful work. In fact, I bought one of his paintings. I'm going to show you a couple of paintings he did. In fact, let's see, here we go. When I saw this painting in his studio, where is it? There it is. It reminded me of my grandmother. And I thought, wow, look at that painting. And that's in a really beautiful book. I think it's one of your best books, E.B. It's called, I think it's a poem from Langston Hughes called The Negro Speaks of Rivers. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is such a beautiful book. I just can't believe how beautiful it is. Of course, I lost my wife 3.5 years ago. And I had this really cool picture and I was showing it to someone. A principal that we both know, and this principal got a hold of the photo and without me knowing it, sent it to EB. And this is up in my house. So EB, your artwork is up in my house. But if you look at that, it's kind of cool. There's my hand and my wife's hand in the hospital. And there's a watercolor, and EB is really a watercolor guy. Is that fair to say, EB?
Yes, I'm a painter, and I use watercolor as my medium.
So that's up in my house. That's a really beautiful painting. And then he did something really special for me, besides all the beautiful books that he does. And he also does fine art. He did something really beautiful for me. And he can tell you about it. Are you going to talk about icons at all?
I'm going to talk about icons, yes.
Yeah. So yeah. I called him up one day and I asked him, I saw these little paintings that he did. And I said, hey, can you do one of those for me? And it's made to look like us. There it is right there. I'm sorry. So how do you like that? It looks like a scratch ticket, I guess you would say.
It's a lottery ticket. It's a real lottery ticket. There we go. It's a lottery.
You look right here. It's the color teal, and the color teal is for ovarian cancer. So you did a fabulous job. You know how breast cancer is pink, ovarian cancer is teal, and should I call you Earl or EB?
EB.
I know.
That's my alter ego. I created that not to confuse it with Earl. You know, when I came into the industry years ago, I guess it's been about 26, 27 years, I had to think about, the illustrator, the world of an illustrator versus the world of the fine artist. And I knew that this really stupid line does exist. And so I had this whole career, and I still have this career as a fine artist, and I didn't want the two worlds to merge. And so I said I had to come up with an alternate name. And I thought, well, let's just use my initials, not knowing later down the road that the EB would basically supersede the Earl. And so all over the world now I'm as EB. And so the only people that know me as Earl is family and people that go back far enough to know the name Earl. And now,
Yeah.
and Jerry, because Jerry goes back far enough, but in close friends, but I am EB.
Well, it's all yours, EB. If I was to
Well,
ask you a question, I would say, where are you sitting right now?
I am sitting.
I'm in Boston. I'm in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm actually in
Oh,
South
okay. So
Boston.
you okay? Yeah, I am. Okay, I am. I have two other properties. I live in New Jersey, kind of pretty much most of the year because I teach, and I teach at the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts. I teach at PAFA. I teach illustration there, and so I'm here in Jersey, but I have a home in Charleston, South Carolina, and then I have a place in Kentucky. So I kind of do a triangle when I move about. Kentucky's beautiful. I live in a little area there called in Flemingsburg, this kind of south of, this is south, I'm not sure if it's south of Lexington, right outside of Lexington. And
Wow.
so, yeah, I am now home and I'm in Jersey. I'm here working as most of us are. And it's this time people talk about, just being secluded. And as an artist, we often find ourselves secluded. That's what we do. We live in this pretty much in a vacuum. So this is pretty natural for me. This is kind of normal. I wake
I
up
was
in the
telling
morning.
that to someone the other day that, they say, what's it like being alone in your condo during this virus? And I said, I don't know. I've been in 4,000 hotel rooms visiting schools all over the country. So it's sort of normal to be alone.
Yeah,
But
it's
yeah, you're
normal.
saying the same thing.
Yeah,
You're an artist.
I
You're a painter. You're more alone than me.
yes, and I love the solitude. That's the reason I moved to the country. I'm in a very rural area. I live nestled in the Pine Barrens. I'm literally in the woods, and I can go out. I can go a whole week without seeing a human being. The only person I would see would probably be my mailman or my landscaper. But other than that, I would not see a human being on a regular basis. So this is how I like it. This is what I immerse myself in my work, and I am working on projects now. I have several books that I'm working on, and then I have projects that I'm working for the galleries, and I have two galleries in France and one in Luxembourg. So I just had a one-man exhibition in France in Provence, and so right now I'm actually should be, instead of being here in my in New Jersey home, I should be actually in France teaching a 2-week watercolor course here in France. Hopefully when this passes, I get to do that. We just pretty much postponed it, and so I will do that when time permits. But yeah, this is the life of the artist, and I know without a doubt that the work that I do, with the children, is my it's what I was meant to do. You kind of find yourself on these contributories throughout life, and hopefully, you go down this one stream and another stream, and eventually, hopefully, if you're fortunate, you find yourself on that river, and I know I'm on the river without a doubt. I am doing the work that the universe has meant for me to do, and it's grand when you find yourself in that position.
For people that might wonder, have I ever been to his house? Yes, I've been to his house and I've been to his studio and I watched him paint. And I was just, when I was driving away from your house, I was like, I couldn't believe what a great painter you are. You know, I was
Well,
watching your
thank
hand-eye
you, Jerry.
coordination. I was
Thank you.
watching you paint water, and I'm like, "There's a blank piece of paper." And then maybe after a few minutes, I was like, "Wow, look at that! It looks exactly
Well,
like water."
I do school visits. One of the things that I do when I'm working with the kindergartners, first graders, is we do this little drawing. I'm going to turn my camera over here to this little drawing here, and this is this is how I used to draw when I was your age, and I started from fresh. I started from a blank piece of paper, and then I started building on it. And this is my house that I grew up in, and then we had a pear tree. And the pear tree behind the house, we had to climb over the fence to go in and get the pears. They were wonderful, juicy pears. And then my dog Rex, I cannot forget about my dog Rex. And then that's me. And then I said, stop, and I said, what's my drawing missing? And then that's why I'll have the children join in. And I would say, so they were all, it's interesting. Every time, without a doubt, every time they always say the sun. It is like as if it is something that we cannot live without, that the sun is so important and so necessary. I do hundreds of schools, I guess it's been thousands now through the years. And it's interesting that they always say the sun. And then the next thing, without fail, will be grass. And then I will go and then I'll start flowers and start calling out. And I will stop them and I will say, okay, this is how I used to draw when I asked the question. I said, so how many of you can draw like this? And the hands go up. How many of you can draw better than this? And all the hands go. I'm like, you can draw better than that? Get out. All right, smarty pants. And then I say, okay, if you can draw better than that, okay, let me show you what happened. So I go and I pull up one of my images from one of my books and I say, okay, I used to draw like that when I was a little kid. And now I draw like this. How did I go from drawing like this to drawing like that? What's the word? And then the kids will say, many of them will yell out, practice. I said, exactly right. So to your end there, Jerry, you look at me and work and it looks effortless, and it's not. And it's struggle. It's years of practice. It's years of trial and error. It's years of making mistakes. And mistakes are part of the process. And I encourage children to make mistakes because you cannot learn without making them. And so I've been through hundreds and hundreds of mistakes to get to the point where it looks effortless. But every time I look at them, every time I'm faced with a blank piece of paper and I have my brush in my hand and my palette there on the side, I sit there and it's like getting ready to face the dragon all over again. This is dragon sitting at the door and he is suited up because he knows me. We've been doing this for years, and he's there with his shield and he's a fire breathing dragon, and he is waiting for me and I am waiting for him. And sometimes he wins and sometimes I win. Most times he wins. And so for me, it's like, I think it was Fitzgerald who was asked one time, says, by someone who was interviewing him, says, John F. Scott Fitzgerald said, I think your work is genius. He says, I hear you, but actually every day I struggle with how little talent I have. And that's pretty much what it is. I struggle with how little talent, because you're seeing what your eye, your mind's eye has this amazing thing that it sees, and all you can do is go and there's an intention, and I have the intention of what I want to accomplish, and you never reach it. So at the end of it, I go, okay, this is as good as it gets. I can't go beyond that. I see my mind's eye wants to, and I can't, and it becomes frustrating. And that's why when there's it's a wonderful black and white photograph of Matisse, and he's on his deathbed, and he cannot move without aid, and he has a bamboo pole in his hand, and at the tip of the bamboo pole is a piece of chalk, and he's drawing on the ceiling. That's it, that's for every artist. And the writer who's trying to, at the last breath, is trying to figure out that sentence, that first sentence. The dancer thinking about the step, the musician, that note, the painter, that mark, that, the sculpture, the filmmaker, all the 7 arts. We all struggle with the little talent that we have. We are trying to get beyond that and getting to that point where we are satisfied, and we never really want satisfaction anyway. You never want to be satisfied. That's what the driving force is, to not be, to push yourself to that end.
Earl, someone called in and has a question for you. Ready?
Yes.
Was there someone in his family who recognized his talent and nurtured his artistic career?
Yeah. Without a doubt. I think you cannot do it without having that that form of encouragement. And I encourage children, parents all the time. You see it, you don't push it, you just entice it, encourage it. You work as a catalyst. You give that encouragement. And that person for me was my uncle. My uncle Bradley. He was an artist, and he saw early on that I was struggling as a kid. I had a tough childhood coming up. I really struggled. I basically I'm and then I stuttered. And so standing in front of the classroom, you can imagine being a little kid in third grade and standing there with this book, and the words are jumping all over the place, and you're seeing the words, and you don't understand why they're doing it, and you assume that all the other kids in the classroom have figured out how to stop the words from doing that. They're much smarter than I am. And so as the words are jumping and I'm struggling to get the words out, the kids are laughing. And so how do you survive that as a child? You don't have the articulation to go home explain the struggle. And so what you do, you end up becoming a problem for the teacher. And that's what happens with a lot of children. They're struggling to express and find out and show that I am struggling here. Please help me. But we don't know how. They don't know how. And so you need help. You need somebody to care. And we know we live in a society that we talk about caring all the time. But we do it from a seated position. You can't care from a seated position. Caring requires you to get up and put it into action. You can't say, oh yeah, I care. Yeah, I do care about that. Yes, no, that's in climate control. I do care, but you can't do it seated. You have to get up. And so I needed someone to care to that level to help me, to really help. And this person, my uncle, saw that I was struggling. I guess he had an epiphany one night. He said, my son, my sister's son, my nephew, he's struggling, and I'm gonna see what I can do to help him. So he leaves out of his house one Saturday morning, and drives across a bridge, comes to my house, knocks on my door, and says, hey, come with me. I had no idea where I was going because my parents were taking me from one psychologist to the next, trying to figure out. I had failed the third grade. I was a mess. And so now I'm in sixth grade, and he's coming over to the house, and I'm assuming it's his turn to take me to the psychologist. So I'm in the car, and he looks over and he says, so how's it going? I'm like, fine. How's school? Okay. And that was pretty much it. And I'm not sure where it's going. And we're driving driving through the streets of Philadelphia, and we end up on Broad Street in this big building there. It's a building, it says Ritter Hall, Temple University. I've never seen this building in my life. And I'm like, oh, now I know that I'm going to a psychologist. We get out the building, we get out the car, we walk up the steps, and I smell this fragrance. It smelled like, it was like chicken to me. It was turpentine and linseed oil. It was like so pungent, and it was such a wonderful fragrance. I was like, my God, it's like, what is this? And as I'm following the smell up the steps, and I get in, and he opens a second set of doors, and there are kids in there playing with clay, and they're drawing and they're painting, and Miles Davis is playing in the background. I'm like, what is this place? This magical place. These are my people. This is my tribe. Yeah. I wanted to turn around and kiss him. This man took me to this place of, when you talk about that, your tribe, that's what we're trying to all find, your tribe. People have like minds and understand you. And I walk into this place and I realize that this is where I belong. These are my people. And he didn't do this for one Saturday. He sacrificed his 3 daughters and his wife on a Saturday morning. He did it for 6 years straight.
Wow.
So I owe my uncle my life.
Yeah. All right, here's your next question, EB. Ready?
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's how you found is that how you found your way into the children's market?
It is not.
How did that happen?
No, I went to school. I went to Temple. I only applied to one school, Temple University. That's where my uncle was teaching. And then I decided to pursue the career of illustration and fine art. But I knew that I needed a background, something to fall back on. And that was the teaching. So I got a degree in education. So when I came out of school, I was so ill prepared for the industry. I fell flat on my face. I stopped painting for 6 years, and
Wow. I never knew that story.
yeah, I stopped painting for 6 years, and went into teaching, and later got my degree in special education. I got a master's in special ed, and so I'm working at a psychiatric hospital, working every day with kids that were struggling, children who had
And
disabilities.
were you painting at night?
I was painting at night in my studio. I turned my studio into I turned my classroom, a corner of my classroom, into a studio. And I would paint there every night. And the only people would see my work would be my colleagues coming in the morning. And so as a long story short, someone saw the work and encouraged me to show it out beyond my classroom. And so I did that. And long story short, an agent saw my work. I was on the cover of American Artist magazine, and an agent saw my work and contacted me and wanted to know if I was interested in doing kids' books.
Very good.
20.
Do you remember your very first job?
My very first job as an artist, or my very first job as an illustrator. My very first book was Fire on the Mountain. It's a folk tale by Jane Kurtz, and it takes place in Ethiopia about a young boy looking in search of his sister who had left home years ago, and she went to look for him. He went to look for her, and wonderful story. Yeah, Fire on the Mountain was my very first book. And if you look at my work, you'll see that was kind of the beginning of, I guess, my path. My work is about emotion. I mean, that's my gift, is that I do strong human emotion. And if you see my work, I'm pulling at the heart. I want stories that pull at the heartstring. And I have just wonderful authors that do that. Jackie Woodson, she just, we kind of become this little marriage together, and we do these books that really get children to start to think, to ruminate and to ponder their lives and see the importance of humanity. And that's my thing. And so if you see my work, if you go through the body of work, you'll see the common thread is strong human interest stories that touch at the heartstring.
I agree. When I look at the people in your books, they're really well done, really, really beautiful. Some people draw really well, and then they get to people, they kind of, have trouble. Someone asked me this to ask you, how many books would you be under contract for at one time? And if I called you today and asked you to illustrate a book for me, what would you say to me? How long before you could do the book?
The industry has changed after 2008. It's not the same industry. There was a time where I was 8, 9 books out. You would have to
really
wait.
Wow.
Yeah, you would wait. And I do about 2 or 3 books a year, because I'm in the studio from 11 to about 3, 4, 5. So I'm working about 15, 18 hours a day. And I'm in my the place where the magic happens. My studio is my most favorite place in the world. And I love being in there. And so if someone asked me today, because the contracts are not, I think the competition now is a lot more. The industry has changed. And then the fact that publishers are finding that they want illustrators to write. So they're not really making that pairing as they did before. And so I find myself not as many contracts as I used to have. So if someone asked me, when are you available? I would say next year, because it has slowed down to that point.
So if I want to hire you, I could hire you next year.
Yeah, I mean, you can put a contract in now for next year. Yes, you can. Yeah.
Hey, Gloria, I know you're out there somewhere. Do you have any questions?
Jerry. Hi, Mr. Lewis.
Do you have any questions you'd like to ask?
Hi, Gloria.
EB?
Greetings from Newton, Mass.
Newton, Mass.
Yes, right up the street from Boston College.
Was that?
By the way, EB, how many books have you done?
I last count, it was over 70. And
Yeah.
I am, the point I wanted to make, I am now writing. I just wrote 2 books, working
Yeah.
on the third. And I took them to Nancy Paulson, and she picked them up immediately. And it's a series. It's a Little Earl series. It's called, the first book is called Little Earl and a Search for Time. And it's about a little kid who, as children, and we have this construct of time in our society. And basically the little kid is struggling because we use terms that even confuse time even more by time is flying, time stood still, and all that. So basically, it's a little kid trying to help his grandmother because she says she's standing at the sink and working at the sink, ready for dinner or what have you. And so she says, where did the time go? And little Earl says, I'm going to help Grandma find it. And it's about this search for time. And the other one is called, the other book is called Little Earl and the Return to Sender. And that's the 2 books that have already been not under contract, they're ready to be, I'm working on now, getting ready to work on one of them now. So I'm now a writer.
All right. I'm going to give you a break, EB, for a second. And
yes,
Gloria.
And Gloria, the author, Gloria.
Yes. I could tell you that Gloria has 1 book and EB has 70. But I know that EB at one time had 1 book because I at one time only had 1 book. So that's okay. But we love what you did, Gloria. And go ahead, talk about yourself in your book.
Thanks. Thank you, Jerry and EB. It's really a pleasure to meet you. I've seen your books, EB, and they're really gorgeous, gorgeous illustrations. So it's really different. I come to this as a lawyer and as a former lobbyist with a real passion project to engage children in the excitement and of democracy in election season. So I wrote this book as a passion project. So yes, I only have 1. And although I have been asked to write further, it's really about E is for Election Day for me in engaging young children in the excitement of election season. So when I grew up in a town called Everett, Mass, where it's a real football powerhouse, but second to football, elections were a sport. And my dad ran for mayor a couple of times, and my brother served in the state Senate. So I grew up walking the streets, holding signs, delivering leaflets up and down 3 triple-deckers, involved in the election season in the weekends during the fall with my family. And so when my children, I have 2 boys, and during the 2008 presidential historic election, when they were younger, they were always asking me questions. What's a convention? Why are there debates? And I realized that this educational resource was not available for children in elementary schools. And so knowing of Jerry and obviously his huge inventory of alphabet books, I sort of said, maybe there's an opportunity to do an alphabet book and explain the election season sights and sounds in very educational format, sort of lots of vibrant illustrations. My illustrator was Sean McCann from Minnesota. And so I went out and did an alphabet book and started out with A for what is an American election and went through the whole alphabet of B is for ballots, C is for convention, D is for debate. And each page engages the child with a question in terms of how they would impact and be involved in the election season. So can you guess what my hardest letter was out of the alphabet? What do you think? So I ended up doing X. X was my hardest letter, and I had to take a little liberties and did exit polling. So there wasn't too many words in the election lexicon that began with the letter X. So I did exit polling. But it's been a really great experience meeting with librarians and engaging children. The real sweet spot for this book is in ages, I should say grades 2 to 5. And I go out to different schools. I go out to conventions. I engage teachers a lot at the political conventions. So I've attended all of the political conventions. I've met all of the political candidates running for president. It's really terrific living in Massachusetts, where you can drive right up to New Hampshire and meet them all, which has been a lot of fun, and engaging them.
Do you have any pictures with you?
I do have some. And it's funny, they've
By the way,
signed my book.
Okay.
So, and they've all taken a page of my book that's resonated with them. So in 2016, I met, Chris Christie, and the poor guy, he ended up signing P for primary day because he thought he was going to win the presidential primary in New Hampshire the next day. And Jeb Bush, poor Jeb signed C for convention, thinking he was going to get the nomination. And then Hillary Clinton signed O for oath of office, thinking that she'd be eventually taking the oath. So that was 2016. But this year, it was a lot of fun. And so I've met Julian Castro and Andrew Wang. And what do we have here? Elizabeth Warren and Booker, Cory Booker. And so when I met, and they've all signed the book, which has been a lot of fun and my personal sort of political junkie souvenir. And then in 2016, I met Donald Trump and had him sign Q is for qualifications, with his big, flourishing, egotistical signature there. So Q for qualifications. So there are a few qualifications to run for president, and you have to be 35 years old. Let's find my page here. So 35 years old, you have to live in the United States for 14 years. You have to be born in the US of one of their provinces, and you can then be president of the United States. So it's been a lot of fun. I want to say thank you to all the teachers that are out there homeschooling and the parents out there now homeschooling. And if you have an opportunity to engage your child in election season, it goes a long way. Whether you bring them to the ballot box and show them how to actually vote, or perhaps you can keep them up a little bit later and watch a little bit of the debates, which is also an opportunity for them to learn. And also, there's also opportunity to volunteer in the local headquarters and folding leaflets and standing on corners with a sign and getting them to know the candidates and why they're running. So let's build the next generation of voters. And just like 16-year-olds are getting excited to get their driver's license, let's hope the next generation, when they turn 18, can register to vote and be just as excited about that, to engage more people in the election season. So thanks, Jerry, for giving me an opportunity. It's my book is E is for Election Day, and it's a very approachable civics lesson for elementary school students.
Tell us your website.
Very simply, E is for electionday.com.
So a teacher, if she wanted to buy books for her class, or a librarian, if they wanted to buy a book for the school.
Yes, they could contact me directly. Certainly the national distributors have it as well. And Scholastic Reading Club has it as well in their pamphlets that get distributed yearly in a paperback version.
Very good. E is for electionday.com.
Yes,
excellent.
Thanks. Thank you.
Well, Gloria, I'm really proud of you. A lot of people say, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write a book. You know, hundreds of people have approached me and said, I'm going to write a book. I want to do this book. And they never do it. And
Right.
You did it. And not only did you do it, when I saw that you went to the conventions and got all those candidates to sign your book, or
yeah, well, you got to do a little guerrilla marketing when you're all by yourself. So it's
teach a course on how to promote your book is what
right.
you should do.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun, and it's been terrific, and it's really sad with, with the coronavirus, and I hope everyone is healthy out there in YouTube land that's watching. Continue to wash your hands and stay home and stay safe. So I really miss being with the children, and a lot of the conventions have been canceled. So this year, right now, a lot of the bigger shows, as most authors know, we don't have the opportunity to present our product. And on the political convention side, they're talking now about the Democratic convention being postponed and perhaps even canceled. It's a whole new world we're living in now for getting together.
I read they thought they might do it virtually like us today.
I know, which will be interesting.
Wow, it would be wild.
Yeah.
Think of how lucky we are, though.
I know.
Earl's down there in Jersey near Philly. You're in
Right.
Newton, Mass. I'm in Boston.
Yeah, but for someone that has an idea to write a book like myself, again, my vocation is in the law and in lobbying. And so, but this was really a project for me that I really felt passionate about. And I was really inspired by you, Jerry, and certainly by such prolific authors and illustrators like Mr. Lewis. And if you have a will, there's a way. And I chose the route of self-publishing. But I had an opportunity to work with really terrific people. And if you put some muscle behind it, you can get it done.
Good work.
Thank you.
Great. Good job.
Hey, Earl, we would love to see some of your art or some of the covers of your books. Can you do that for us?
Yeah, I have. I want to just mention what Gloria had just mentioned, just kind of the sidebar there. About how children are finding themselves in this situation. And I want to, again, thank the parents that are homeschooling, the teachers that are doing a wonderful job of getting the education still flowing into their homes. All in the librarians, all the people behind the scenes that are making this happen for the children. So yeah, Gloria, thanks for bringing that up. It's a good point.
Real important.
And so my book, I have two books that are coming out this year. One is called Lizzie Demands a Seat, about the forerunner to Rosa Parks. She is Lizzie Jennings. Back in 1850, she actually was thrown off one of the horse-drawn car carriages in New York City. Really powerful story. And that's out. And a new book that will come out after that in August, if all things go according to plan, is a book called Dark Was the Night, a story about Blind Willie Johnson. So those are the two books that I have coming out this year. And these are some favorites here. This is the book, The Other Side by Jackie Woodson. And most people are familiar with this, and of course, familiar with Jackie Woodson. And this is a wonderful story about two little girls living on opposite sides of a fence. These are some of my favorites of books that when I think about homeschooling and talking about kindness and the importance of that kind of, friendship and this being mindful of the universe and those very important issues and subjects. This one here is another book here called Trooper, the love of pets. This is told from the story, from the voice of the dog by Meg Kearney. And it's about a little boy going to the kennel to find this dog named Trooper and the life of this. It's just a wonderful story here. So his life there now in a home, with his three legs. And at the end of the story, I don't want to get the ending of the book away, of course. And interesting enough, the works that I've done, many of my books are now in different languages. This one is Armenian, so the love, when you think about children's books, that the combination or the marriage of text, what the author does, and illustration, to have the book when a child can not even read yet, be able to follow the story. And this is a perfect example of that, where you're able to not even know the language in the book. If you open a book up, I cannot read that language. I cannot read that script, but I can still tell the story from the picture. So a lot of my books are different languages. I don't even know this language, but it has just been this book. The book is called Each Kindness by Jackie Woodson. And it has now been translated into French, which I love because that's kind of my best place in all the world is Paris. So there's some of my work, but then to look at some of, I'm going to pull this up, I'm going to share screen and just take you through a little, since we talked about the icons, I want to show you that work there. So I'm sharing screen and we will pull this up. Here's this, let me move this, it's gonna move this image out of the way. How do I move this? I can't move this image out of the way. Oh, well, we got to see this with the image with Jamie there. Side. The image little EB with grandma. And I was raised, the first 5 years of my life was with my grandparents. You says your internet connection is disabled. Can you still see this, Jerry? Jerry?
I can see great.
Okay. Here's this is a little EB struggling at that years of struggle, you know, being stammering and unable to read smoothly because the words are jumping all over the page for me, and they still do. And that stuff that spilled on my grandparents' photo album, you know, that brown stuff over there, that is, for me, an example of what my life was like, all kind of smudged up and looking for clarity.
If that was me, it would be spaghetti sauce.
This is me and you could tell you that this guy here, Santa, scared the living daylights out of me. And then my uncle. I have to show the image of my uncle. The guy.
Oh, that's your Uncle Bradley?
That's my Uncle Bradley. This wow. he has passed away, but
what a great man.
Without this man here, this is, when you talk about caring, this is the epitome of caring. And so my work, just very quickly, I'm going to go through these very quickly, just showing some of the images of what I do in watercolor, stretching the canvas, as it were.
God, they're just so beautiful.
Images that, things that I love to paint, images that take me around the world. I have this intrepid spirit. So I'm finding myself here in the Philippines. I'm not Philippines. This is Panama. So just images after images of, and so I'm going to get here to what we talked about, the images of the
beautiful. Look at that. Wow.
The icons.
Oh yes. Explain the icons.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to get to that now. This is Israel. I went to Israel to do a story about a sparrow that lives in the Western Wall, and talking to
EB, someone's asking me online if any of your work is done by computer, and I believe the answer is no.
No, none of the work is done by computer.
All done watercolor.
All watercolor.
All watercolor. Amazing. Look at those hands. Wow.
Okay, so now here's the chart. This is where I came in. I stopped painting for 2.5 years because I felt my work wasn't cogent. I thought it wasn't valuable and important, so I just stopped painting. And for 2.5 years, frustrated, I went on a search. I needed to charge the battery, so I went looking at art, and I ended up in this gallery in Delaware. I'm not in Delaware, in Richmond, Virginia. Richmond? Not Richmond. I can't remember. It's North Carolina. Raleigh, North Carolina. Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina. And here's this piece. It was a piece by a Jamaican American artist by the name of Michael Richards, and he did this piece on injustice, the injustice of the Tuskegee Airmen, and he basically did a body cast of himself and had planes crashed it into his body, you know, to talk about the injustice.
Wow.
And I saw it right away, man, and I was just blown away. I'm like, that's what I want my work to do. I want my work to talk about injustice. And about then the injustice for me, it's all about children, our children, our children, our children, our children. And so just to get further the story, I looked over at the little plaque that, talked about this piece, and it said, this is a piece about, but from the artist, Jamaican American artist, Michael Richards, and he does this piece on the Tuskegee Airmen. He does a body cast of himself. And he says at the end, he must have had a premonition of his own death because he perished in a 9/11 plane crash. And his studio was at the top of the World Trade Center. And when the planes crashed into the World Trade Center, he lost his life. But how ironic is this, that here he is doing a body cast of himself and having planes crash into his own body. So it causes pause. I mean, it just kind of takes your breath away. So I go home and I do the sketch about, you can see the date here, in 2010.
6/15/10.
Yes. And so I wanted to see if I can do this thing that I had in my head. And what it was is that if I can work, I need to go get lottery tickets and gum, because I needed something that you would be able to, kind of in burnish. I remember as a little kid, you might remember this, Jerry, when you were a little kid with the gum wrapper, you would take the gum and try to separate the wax from the silver from the wax gum, and you would take it and burnish it on the desk. And we actually would take pennies and turn them into dimes and take them to the store and try to, fool the attendant. So I remember that as a child. And so this was my first attempt at that. And then I said, oh, I can do it. So the next thing was to do in my sketchbook, to take a child and then put this child on a lottery ticket and then put gold leaf over it. So it's like being on an archaeological dig, and you find something very precious underneath the earth, and you brush away the detritus, this dirt, this rubble, and to uncover this thing that's far more precious than what's covering it. And so what I'm doing is I'm taking these children from around the world, and I'm painting literally on the lottery ticket only to uncover the child. And so it's as if you're scratching through and saying that this child is, and I don't scratch the lottery ticket, so I don't know if the lottery ticket is a winning ticket or a losing ticket. It doesn't matter to me. It can be a $100,000 winning ticket under this thing. For example, you go through these, like this piece here, there's over 40 tickets on this piece. And it can be a $100,000 winning ticket under that. I don't really care, because for me, the child that you scratch through to uncover is far more valuable than anything you can scratch on a lottery ticket. And so these pieces are then framed like 12th century Byzantine medieval lottery, icons. And so they're called lotto icons. And so now
I think that's my favorite right there.
Around the world, thank you. The museums around the world are buying these faster than I can paint them. And I'm doing children from around the world now. So, and as I did your wife there, so I do take commissions of people to say, I want you to do my child, or I want you to do your wife there, Linda, who I knew and was really loved. So my incredible loss there, but I'm glad I was able to have met her. And then sometimes they get quite large. This is the Golden Child, and these are all lottery tickets still under these pieces. And so my world is focusing my camera, going around the world. I'm in Morocco here, and I focus my camera on the children who I think are the future of our society. And I'm gonna leave it, stop at that.
Beautiful, EB. You are fabulous. I can't thank you enough for coming on. I think we had a wonderful show.
Hey, Jerry, no, I thank you for doing this. I'm a vehicle, and people like you, the librarians, teachers, and the real heroes. I'm doing, what the work of the universe, what was asked of me. But people like you who understand the importance of this work and need to get it in the hands of the children, to help them, because we make the assumption that children, that we empower children, and that's not true. Children empower themselves, and what we do is we give them the tools to do that. And this is what this is. This is today, is giving them that tool to empower themselves. And again, Jerry, thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Gloria. Are you out there, Gloria?
Yes, right here.
Thank you, Gloria, for coming on.
Thanks,
Your
Jerry.
book is special at a special time. Thank you, EB.
Gloria, great meeting, Gloria. I hope this is not your last book. Yeah, don't make this your last book, because you obviously got the talent and can continue. And I cannot wait to see that and share that. If I have a 13-year-old, he would love that book.
Thank you. I'll send you one.
Yes.
EB, this is a true story. When she was doing that book, I said, you got to get EB to do it. You got to get EB to do it. Right?
You were too expensive for me, Mr. Lewis.
Oh no, I would have done that book gratis there.
You weren't too expensive.
I would have done that book for Jerry, because Jerry is, he's the best guy in the world, man. So
Hey,
I would have done that book for that piece that I did for Jerry of his wife Linda, man. I did that out of my heart. The both of us, that's Jerry's just that kind of guy.
Hey,
love you, Jerry.
Earl, it wasn't EB. It wasn't that you were too expensive. It was that you said, well, I could probably get this for you in the next election 4 years from now.
Right.
You had about 9 books to finish.
I would not have said that. So you made the assumption. You made the assumption, and then you know what they say about assumption. Don't make the assumption. E.B. Lewis is available, world. Publishing world, E.B. Lewis is available.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Bye,
Philadelphia.
Stay safe.
Bye, EB. Bye,
Love
Gloria.
you all.
Thank you.
Children,
Thank you, everybody.
continue to